Can you hear me? No, no. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come speak to you. I'm Dr. Jose Morey. I represent the state of Virginia here for the Medical Society of Virginia as a representative for them through the Alliance for Innovation. Thank you for bringing us out here. The previous speaker got to speak to you about the how, or the process of creating a better collaboration between the US and Poland. I fortunately get to speak to you about the wow, the different types of aspects and the different types of innovation that are going on right now. This doesn't work either. Next slide. Alright. So the amazing thing about biotechnology right now is that we live in a state of innovation that's beyond anything we've ever had before in human history. We're able to create things that before were only created by our artists. Were only created by those who dream big. Right now, the things that are going on in all sorts of innovation in biotechnology are the stuff that we could only envision or imagine previously. Whether it's the way we can change the way we evolve with biotechnology, with CRISPR technologies, with biomechatronics, with additive manufacturing. The list of possibilities of thanks. Thank you. I enjoy something that's a little interactive. So if anyone else wants to come up onto the stage, I'm more than happy to help out. Yeah, but we're doing so many things right now, not just in pharmaceuticals, but with robotics, with integration of how we evolve with computers, with neuro and brain implants. It's an amazing time to be alive right now. It's an amazing time to be in the space that we all can be in. And the most important thing is, there's an old Chinese adage that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think that's the unique opportunity that we have right now with combining Polish and Virginia innovation. Next slide. There you go. So the future, and you can turn the sound down for the rest until the very end. The future, though, that I'm talking about, the future of innovation, the future of biotechnology, actually starts today. Because a lot of things that I'm going to talk to you about are not the art of the possible. It's not stuff that we hope we can do. It's stuff that's going on currently, right now. Innovation that's going on at this moment. Next slide. These are some of the companies that I've had the luxury and the opportunity to work with. I've worked with some of the smartest folks in the industry, from all sorts of industries, not just pharmaceuticals, but aerospace. And it's the amazing thing of being able to work with people that are way smarter than you, is that you're always learning and always stretching, and you're always being put in positions that you're constantly amazed. And that's why I try to do what I do, because I love the world we live in right now. And I love the art of the possible. I love the fact that you can get up and you can dream and you can make it happen. Next slide. So my concept, this is a hybrid model. So this is my hybrid model of what the future of medicine is like. Not just here on Earth, but in space. One of the groups that I consult for is called NASA iTech. NASA iTech is a NASA accelerator, which is based in Virginia, out of the National Institute of Aerospace. It was started about 4 years ago during the Obama administration. The purpose of it was to bring together the best minds that NASA has together. So NASA has research centers all across the US. I think it's about 10 or 12 of them. Langley's in Virginia, you have Johnston in Houston, you have Marshall, you have Glenn, Ames, and the list goes on and on. So all the CTOs, the chief technical officers, get together every couple of years, every quarter, with subject matter experts like myself, and we talk about what are the technology gaps that we have to reach Mars, not just to reach it, potentially colonize it, and not just Mars, beyond Mars. And we sit around and we talk about what do we have today and what do we need to create to be able to get there. And then we go out and we either purchase it or we create startups. Startups that get spun into NASA centers for research. In the last 4 years, the accelerator has raised around $340 million for startups. And the list keeps growing. So this is a P6 model. If you guys are familiar with healthcare models, you've heard maybe about the P4. There are some other P6. This is my own. So this is the future. It's going to be participatory, preventative, predictive, personalized, public, and panomic. And we're going to dive into these a little more. Next slide. Participatory. Next. So this is the way healthcare used to be. This is the old model. It used to be that it was always point-of-care medicine. The patient had to go to where the physician was, and the physician would tell the patient exactly what they had to do. It was very reactionary. So if you had a broken bone, then you had it fixed. If you had pneumonia, then you get antibiotics. But that's not the way it is now. That's not the way the future will be. Next slide. Now patients have the options that they don't have to go to a tertiary or a coronary care center. Now they can get at the palm of their hand. They just reach out to their phone and they can get telehealth or telemedicine applications, most of which tend to be augmented by artificial intelligence. So they can ask questions, so they can get first-line care without ever having to leave the comfort of their own home. Next slide. Preventative. Next. Again, the old model was if you got sick, you went into the doctor. If you got hurt, you went into the doctor. If you had cancer, you went to the doctor. It was always about this happens, so then something else happens. The future model isn't like that. Next slide. Now you have companies like Remedy. Remedy has an AI application that's trying to prevent disease from ever occurring. It goes beyond just being reactionary to being preventative. Their AI applications integrate with electronic medical records. It's agnostic, so whether you have Cerner or Epic or whatever EMR you tend to have, it actually integrates it. It augments the physician, which is where all AI is really going to, especially in the short term. The augmentation, creating these applications that can identify chronic diseases before they ever occur, so that you can actually try to stop them from happening. Next slide. And this goes beyond let me turn it down a little bit. This goes beyond just primary care. This affects every vertical in healthcare. This is a company called Zebra Medical. Zebra Medical is based out of Israel. Israel understood, for such a small country, they really saw the future of biotechnology. And they decided that they were going to invest a ton of money and infrastructure into STEM technology because they realized that that was the future. And they did this about 2 decades ago. And this is why now Israel can compete in most advanced STEM industries with the US, with China. Zebra Medical is actually creating AI applications on top of PACS. PACS are picture archiving and communication systems. So this evaluates DICOM or radiology images. When you have a mammogram or an ultrasound or you break a bone, you get an X-ray or other type of modality. So this actually looks at CT scans. And this can predict, based on old CT scans, whether you have something like a brain bleed, whether you have emphysema, osteoporosis, aneurysms, hepatic steatosis, which is fatty liver, and a bunch of other things. And you can actually, next slide, you can actually do it online. If you have a CT, you can upload it into the cloud, and for $1, they'll give you a second opinion and they'll evaluate you for those diseases and applications that they have. Again, trying to prevent things from progressing to when they get to late stage. Because as we know in healthcare, there's kind of the 3 major aspects of patient populations, right? We have the healthy well, the young people that don't go see the doctor very much, don't need to. They might see the doctor once a year for their checkup, maybe once every 10 years. Then you have the high-risk patients. Those are the ones that are very sick. That's the high cost. And we found that no matter what we try to do, any intervention we try to do for those high-risk patients, we can't reduce healthcare costs. So from a public health perspective, there's not much you can do. But then that big bulk of patients in the middle, the rising risk patients, that's where we're finding that we can actually make the biggest change from a public health perspective, from a cost and individual perspective. One of the reasons this is happening is because we have so many now unique ways to be able to evaluate people, evaluate all sorts of new types of biomarkers, from Fitbits to smart textiles, from the list goes on and on. Next slide. And we're not just creating applications to be able to bring in data that we never had as physicians before, but now we actually have ways to transmit that data back to the patients. Imagine with these applications when you have your Dr. Alexa. Anybody have an Alexa at home? No. Oh, one or two. Okay. So, I mean, you interact with Alexa to a certain degree. I have an Alexa at home. You interact with her a lot. Imagine when you just start just having healthcare applications and checking yourself with Dr. Alexa in the morning, or she reminds you, hey, take your medication. Hey, your blood pressure's a little high. Maybe you should make a doctor's appointment, or automatically make it for you. Next slide. Doc AI. Doc AI is another application similar to Medici. It's an AI application, almost like a WebMD, if you guys have heard of that before. Essentially, you can ask it questions about your healthcare issues. You can ask it questions about the medications that you're on. And if you tie it into your local pharmacy, it can actually make the prescription order for you automatically and remind you that it's time to pick it up. So it's a doc in a box in your phone. Next slide. Predictive. Next slide. So predictive applications, this was actually an application that we did research on before it came out as a commercial product at the first hospital that I worked at, which was in Virginia at Augusta Medical Center. We were able to create a predictive algorithm that could determine when you were going to develop sepsis 2 to 3 days before it actually developed. So if you can actually prevent these diseases from occurring, you can actually change outcomes. And if anybody knows, has anybody knows about sepsis or had a friend or family that had sepsis at all? You know about sepsis. So sepsis, high mortality, high morbidity. So these are the kind of things that we can actually change in healthcare right now. These are things that are being implemented. If you can identify someone that's going to get sick before they get sick, be able to give them vitamin C or what other types of applications you have in the unit, you can actually change the course for that individual and for that individual's family. Next slide. TheraChat or X2, this is FDA approved. This is a chatbot, so completely autonomous AI that interacts with the patient now. Therapists and psychologists are already using this in between the doctor's visits, so that they can constantly be interacting with their patient. That's the unique thing about healthcare now, that it's no longer just point of care. Now we actually get to interact with patients constantly. And this can actually alert the doctor as to if their patient's having a depressive episode, if they're having suicidal ideations, and actually alert first responders or the physician